A good Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gavin Batista at the Prosperity Channel. We had a 6 days delay, and it is Sunday today in Oklahoma City, and it is May the 4th. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, about that slight delay, but it is May the 4th. I know everybody's asking what happened to Gavin Batista, the host of the Prosperity Channel. Well, I had a minor, I would call a minor surgery on my left eyelid, and it's now about to be okay. So it took me about quite a while, about 6 days of delay of this much needed video broadcast that is so wanted right now here in the United States, because I'm about to predict when the inflation rate of the United States of America's 50 economies will be down to an average of 2%. We have heard so much about supply side economics, but I am the first economist in the world to say that any inflation in the world can be cured by demand control systems. This is all on a macro level. But as you know, before we go into the macro level, we have to go to a per household basis estimate. I hate to use the word microeconomics because that is the most pejorative statement or term for me in the economic world, because so many people became poor because of poor estimates and poor predictions regarding microeconomics. So we go to the most important thing is to really come out with the right, accurate measures on what people spend on and how much. Okay? And the way to do that is to control their spending habits that will practically be the final resulting figure of a lower inflation rate. And finally, we go on a macro level and concentrate on my latest invention, which is the talk of the business world, which is directional planning systems, throwing strategic management literally in limbo. I repeat, we go in controlling the demand curve on a per household basis because of the following reasons. Number one would be interest rates. Number two would be government policies focusing on these products that are continuing to be going on an on and off basis of increase, decrease, increase, decrease, as against a stable economic policy or an executive order coming from the President of the United States to make sure that the consumers of America will follow his endorsements. But I'm not saying that we are going against laissez-faire economics. What I'm saying is that if we have the right policies, the stability of low prices, again, low prices in the sense that we want inflation to be at 2% as soon as possible. I'll give you an example. The grocery items right now sometimes are low, sometimes are high. Okay? So how do we do that to make sure that they are relatively, in general, the grocery prices are always relatively low vis-a-vis compared to 5 years ago? And the answer is this: demand regulations, demand controlled policies, and if I may say, an executive order coming from the president stating that this must be done with the egg industry, for example. And look at it now. It's practically all stable, done with. We can go to another product. And this can be done overnight. If and only if the right regulations will be done from the local level and the executive level. But I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty because it can take about, 30 days to do that. But this is what I can tell you right now. With the policies of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is so fast and furious to attack what the deficit, my prediction is by November or early November, we can already safely say that the United States of America will be the business haven, will be, for a lack of a better term, business friendly. But I would like to say it's going to be the most profitable business location in the world. That's being done right now in Louisiana, Alabama, and the list goes on. Okay? And I think you already know that. I don't want to sound redundant because a lot of my viewers say, Gavin, please give me the nuts and bolts already so we can invest where. Okay? What am I trying to say? Once the 2% inflation rate is achieved, then it goes without saying America is headed to become again the #1 capital in the world when it comes to opening businesses, whether it be a revival, a new business. All types of businesses were welcome here in America. Okay? All types of businesses. As long as you pay good salaries to Americans, you are so loved here. You love it. America is on a rebound. We're not talking about a major rebound. We are talking about the greatest economic comeback in the history of the 189 civilized nations of the world. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the ticklish part of the demand curve, okay, we have the supply side economics, supply demand curve, and supply curve and the demand curve. That is basic economics 101, okay? And if you follow the curve of the Laffer curve and assume the assumptions of the economic policies of the great Milton Friedman, the main issue now is what? Do not rely on the natural demand curve. So my proposal is to rely, especially for the central bank policymakers, is to rely on the guided demand curve. Now, things will become complicated there. Very complicated, because the guided demand curve is focused on making prices stable, not really low, but stable. Because I don't want to come out with an inflation target of 1%, because that can become, I would like to say, a situation where there is no more wiggle room to make a little bit more money for the manufacturing sector, for example, and other sectors for that matter, like hardware services, technology, and the list goes on. But in terms of the average American, I can almost guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, especially if the Fed Chairman, Jerome Powell, will get away from the garbage economics of Bernanke and focus on the progressive economics of Gavin Battista. And that is to reduce immediately the interest rate by at least 1% in order for Americans, the average Americans, to say, hey, we're back to normal. Hey, to all the business people out there, America is back in business. And my prediction is after 6, 7, or 8 months, okay, around the month of November, December, you will see that the economic curve or the gross national product of America will zoom up. And my prediction is that by the end of 2027, our GNP would be about 6%. That is the all-time high. And with the endless, well, right now it's about 8+ trillion just last week. A little bit less than last week, a few days ago, in fact, 8+ trillion of new investments are already here in the United States of America. The factories are being built. Every single major multinational, transnational conglomerate are already wanting to invest in a given state in America. And that will be, again, a whole new program, ladies and gentlemen, because we're talking about at least 20 states who are really raking it in. The 8+ trillion are going to these 20+ states. Now, let me make one thing very clear. The Prosperity Channel, the objective of this Prosperity Channel is for you to become wealthy. And if you do not understand the list of programs I am offering you to become wealthy, obviously you will not be that wealthy. So again, to my sponsors who want to get a piece of the action here, if you're listening to me right now, companies like Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, Colgate-Palmolive, Unilever, and the list goes on, now is the best time to come out with a slot with our prosperity channel. And to my viewers, all you have to do, as I said, is to give us a call at our US cell phone number. And don't worry, we will have an international number. But right now we have our number is 405-503-8511, and our international number, if I may, through Viber. But we will have a 1-800 number, and the number, ladies and gentlemen of the 189 civilized business nations of the world, is still at 405-503-8511. So let us get to the next topic in our agenda. But before we go into that, I'd like to be addressing this to Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. The Honorable Jerome Powell, I salute you for all your efforts in the past to stabilize this great U.S. economy of ours, but the fact of the matter is profits are being squeezed, money velocity is on an all-time low, and the bull market that should be already going strong right now is kind of being held back, but it's there. And I must say that the 2% inflation target can be done with your leadership in announcing this month of May the full 1% reduction of interest rate. Because if that is not done, then Fed Chairman Powell, we will miss the boat again. Again, I do not have the exact data that you guys do have, but there is such a thing as the central bank's feel of the market. And I have been in the business of interest rates all my life. And it's very clear that the market is begging, is wanting, is urging you to come out with that full 1% reduction. Because if that is not achieved, then we will miss the boat. In other words, if this were to be done sometime 2, 3, 5, 6 months from now, the avalanche of new business investments from 2027, 28, 29 will be delayed. We want to create, Fed Chairman Powell, an avalanche of trillions of dollars of investments, some old, some revived, some new, in the 50 states of this great nation of ours. Again, I'd like to repeat, if the interest rate will not be lowered drastically by a full 1% this month of May, the succeeding years of new investments will slow down. And obviously, we do not want that to happen. Whether you like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Prosperity Channel always talk about facts, exactness, preciseness, what will happen. Not what is about to happen, but what will surely happen. And that is all based on economic history. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can just imagine if the governor, if the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, I'm talking about the governors of each and every central bank or federal, well, central bank, yes, of each and every state will encourage, will push the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, to reduce that rate by a full %. As I said, there will be an endless avalanche of new businesses, new money wanting to invest here in the 50 states of the United States. The lucky 20 are already ecstatic. We're looking at the other 30 states. Therefore, my fearless forecast will be coming out very soon on what will be the gross national product of the United States starting in 2027, 28, 29, because I'm already predicting that the chances of Fed Chairman Powell to reduce the rate by a full % is 50-50, and I'm not a 50-50 guy. I am a 100% economic forecaster that if he were to reduce the 1% this month, then we will see a Trump economy just get to the roof and make a lot of people prosperous again. And by the probably first week of June, we can already safely say that the stock market will be roaring back. So whatever was lost during the last 40 days will somehow be returned back. Again, I'd like to tell you very clearly that the new kind of economics I am introducing is never heard. Uruguay tried to copy it, but my brand of central bank policies focuses on a new paradigm. Okay? We central bankers do not just focus on interest rates, but we help the government, the local governments, both federal and state, to encourage new policies to help businesses thrive again and to make consumers happy again. And more importantly, to make business investors make a lot of money. Because this is the problem with America today. They think that all these billionaires, okay, are making a lot of money. Because, you know, in America, as one billionaire put it, it sometimes becomes a curse to be rich here. In fact, most of the billionaires, as you know, give back what they earn. So at the end of the day, some do not really earn as much as they should. In fact, they call these billionaires on so many pejorative language, which I've been living in America since 1989 on and off. I can safely say, except for George Soros, most of these billionaires are really not only good, but are statesmen. But some do not agree, okay? But let's face it, most of the American billionaires give back what they earn, if not all, to the community at large, which some already said, I'm not going to do that, so they're in other parts of the world. In fact, some of these billionaires are being accused of so many, as I said, very, very naughty language, if I may, which some are true, some are not true. And therefore, it becomes a deterrent not to invest or reinvest in America. And this is all being corrected right now by the civilized community of the 50 states, and of course under the strong leadership, the strong, smart, economic leadership of President Trump. As one billionaire in California would say, Gavin, I earned this big amount of money because of my talents and my abilities to risk all the money I have and, give it back to the business entities, I hope. And I said, you're absolutely right. Again, it's because of the press. Because of the paid press, they make you look bad. And it's sad. Because at the end of the day, it's not only the billionaire that loses, but the entire economy at large. And that's why I'd like to direct this statement before we end this particular segment of our discussion. I'd like to direct this to Nate, a columnist, a British columnist who completely does not understand what's happening in America. Nate, in the United States, there is such a thing as a hip shooter, a straight talker, and that is Donald Trump, President Trump. He is not at all what you're describing, and I will not even dare say on the air what you called him, because it's a fallacy. It's not accurate. It's not precise. It is not what is happening here in America. And for a lack of a better term, it is fake news. It is absolutely hogwash. And most of the paid journalists in the United States who are going to be, by the way, identified one by one in this video program, is very obvious. They are paid to ask questions to President Trump that are all nonsense. And again, for a lack of a better term, they're so elementary and it's not even worth answering because it is a stupid question in the first place. And it's so clear. You can go all the tapes, And it is very sad that the journalistic flavor in America and in other parts of the world are being polluted by all of this hogwash nonsense that are not accurate. Because in very accurate terms, in very journalistic, professional terms, Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States and now serving for the last 100 plus days, is a hip shooter. He is a straight talker. He is a New Yorker. He answers questions right on the money. And if he uses certain adjectives or adverbs, if you may, that are not according to British civilized way of doing business, I'm sorry, Nate, we're not talking with the same wavelength. If you want to compare President Trump with other presidents, these presidents do not have the same business background of President Trump. So you cannot malign him in various newspapers, calling him this, that. It doesn't make sense with us Americans here. In fact, it makes your tabloid or your newspaper look very awkward, to say the least. President Trump really just says what it is, and he always wants to protect American business interests. He is a nationalist. He is not an internationalist. He is pro-America and not a globalist. So to compare him with other presidents is not only unfair, but unfair to my friends in Great Britain, which, believe me, Nate, I contributed billions of dollars to your great economy. And therefore, I am not talking about these innuendos, these half-baked statements based on certain measures that would look me unprofessional. Look at me as unprofessional. But I am stating this all based on facts. Based on what is real, what is actual, and what is beneficial to your viewers and my viewers. So in the spirit of professional journalism, I would like you, Nate, to publicly apologize. Because it's all nonsense. It's not factual. It is not true. It is very, very inaccurate, to say the least. And that's why my millions and millions of viewers in the state of California, Japan, India, will you believe India is now also looking at me? Because they got a lot of good information. Not information based on mental telepathy. I would like to sidetrack a little bit on that next time. But to my friends, even in Nepal, Kathmandu, Taiwan, China, they get a lot from me. You know why? Because I always base my statements based on facts to make them prosperous. Russia, the Ukrainians listen to me. Italians love me. Germans adore me. And to my home, my country of origin, the Philippines, they're saying, Gavin, when are you going to become our next central bank governor? Because we are really, really having a tough time the president elect, well, now for the last couple of years of effective governance, President Bongbong Marcos is at a loss because all of his aspirations, all of his objectives in making the Philippines prosperous somehow is still not at all there. We are still in what I call the relief goods economy. But to my friends in Cavite, especially the good senator there, Senator Ramon Revilla Jr., and his colleague, the great DOJ Secretary Boying Remulla, kung ako ang masusunod lang, lahat ng problema ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas ay dahil sa maling pulisiya, maling regulations, at maling direksyon. Mali. I was saying in the Filipino vernacular that the problem with the Philippines right now is precisely wrong economic policies, regulations, archaic budget systems, and the list goes on. And so, ladies and gentlemen, before I end, I would like to end this particular segment with one very basic statement that will shock the world of business. When I was at the Ateneo de Manila University taking up economics under one of the greatest economic professors of all time, who became, by the way, the president of the Philippines, none other than Gloria, the glory of the Philippines during that time, Macapagal Arroyo. This I can say to you right now. I was always told that the basic formula for success in economics to make a lot of people prosperous is savings equals investments. S equals I. I tell you right now, there are so many new formulas to make your country prosperous always. And it is all about cost management. What is cost management? Cost is revenue. C equals R. S is equal I. That's so common. C, cost, equals revenue. I repeat, cost, managed cost, temporary cost. There's so many types of cost that you will only hear with me. Equals what? Revenue. And what is revenue? Managed revenue is net profits. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will discuss that very lengthily. My number, my US cell phone number, we're on Viber, by the way, is 405-503-8511. And you can also hit me with an email on superdeals1494@gmail.com. And my other email, you can CC it to, copy it to midwestern91@gmail.com. And as we say in the Prosperity Channel, the more you listen, the more you earn. Thank you. Good afternoon. And to my friends in Asia, I will be there very soon. Thank you for watching. And as I said, see you soon.